the last record you did was black. The record you did before that was dark. The record you did before that was black. Like, don't do black.
Welcome to the 10th episode of Art, Design, Music. I still can't believe we made it here. That's 10 conversations with visual artists who have made incredible and iconic work for the music industry. We've had graphic designers, a music video animator, poster illustrators and printmakers, band logo designers, and a legendary music photographer. If you haven't had a chance to check out all those episodes yet, you can find them wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you hit subscribe so you're not missing any of the action. We're on social media at Art Design Music Podcast, and you can email us at artdesignmusicpodcast@gmail.com. I'm Judd Haynes, a graphic designer and illustrator from Newfoundland, Canada. Today's episode will mark the last long-form conversation with a guest for this season, but it's not the last episode for this season. In some ways, we've saved the best for last, and with episode 11, we're turning the microphone over to you, our listeners. We've been asking all season for you to send in questions for guests, comments, good or bad, show suggestions for upcoming episodes, etc., and you have responded. It's been awesome, and the next episode is going to be a fun one. We'll have returning guests coming back on to answer your questions, and I'll be announcing the winners of all of our giveaways. Each episode, we've had a different item to give away to everyone that sends in a comment or question, or is following us on Facebook or Instagram. There's still time to get your entries in, as long as you're listening to this before episode 11 has been released. If you're finding this podcast years down the road, well, I'm sorry to say, the contests are closed and you probably didn't win. Today's episode is a very, very special one for me. I first became aware of Aaron Draplin many years ago when he was a panelist on a webinar being hosted by a Toronto graphic design organization. I was watching the webinar at our local Newfoundland college when my phone started lighting up. Friends in Ontario, who were also watching the webinar, were writing me to say they were watching my doppelganger talk graphic design. Aaron Draplin is a scruffy-haired, bearded man whose uniform consists of a mesh-back trucker hat and a denim jean jacket. He didn't use all the normal industry terminology and didn't care about trying to seem modern and smart. He was excited about design and even more excited to have an audience to share his excitement. All excitement all the time. Excitement, yeah. That's Aaron Draplin. I'm the same way. I've never been that scholarly, sophisticated design nerd sporting a turtleneck under a suit jacket who attends every conference and seeks recognition in design awards. Aaron Draplin and I look pretty similar, yes. But we also have similar approaches to making art and design. We just dive in. Who cares about the rules? In basketball, they oftentimes refer to winning a hard game as winning ugly. And I've never minded winning ugly. I wrote Aaron Draplin later that same night after the webinar, and within 5 minutes of hitting send, he responded. We chatted very occasionally after that, which eventually led to him coming to Newfoundland to give one of his talks to our local design community. His client list has included Patagonia, the Obama administration, Ford, Target, Nike, Burton Snowboards, Sub Pop Records, Dinosaur Jr., Dawes, and Bernie Sanders, just to name a few. He has become a full-fledged celebrity in the design world. His big, beautiful mug on the covers of magazines, he's been a featured speaker at over 400 design events, and continues to blow minds on Instagram, where he has around 250,000 followers. He has a best-selling book called Pretty Much Everything, which can be found pretty much everywhere. If I found it at our local bookstore months before we ever announced he was coming to town, I'm sure it must be available in your local bookstore. I really, really enjoyed this conversation with Aaron Draplin, and I know you will too. All right, Aaron Draplin, welcome. Thanks for being here, buddy.
Nice to hear your voice, man. I miss you guys.
Very, very excited you agreed to come along. You've always been super kind with your time, and a bunch of years ago, well, I guess it was only 2 or 3 years ago, you came all the way to Newfoundland, where I am, to do one of your talks at a sold-out show here in our small Atlantic Ocean town. Before you went on, you said, I'm thinking about going long. Is that okay? And I was like, yeah, man, it's your show. You go as long as you want. And then you went for 2 hours and 15 minutes afterwards. You told me that was the record. And I want to know, has that record been beat since?
No, not even. Oh my God, that's right. I remember like saying things like, if someone needs to deliver a baby, or like age, or go to the bathroom, the time is now, because I'll go wherever they'll have me. But the adventure of going somewhere where you wouldn't think that design would be a big deal, because the thing is I'm from one of those, and then knowing how far it was, and I remember you get to Toronto. And then you got another bunch of, ways to go. And you start to see just how far it is. And the privilege of going to that, it was, that I better just tell everything. Because some of these places I've gone 2 and 3 times now, right? And if you saw it 3 years ago and you're still interested in whatever little blip, you can come back and get the next pile. But there it's like, I'm just going to go crazy. If you'll hear it, let's do it. And, and I got to say, of all my gigs, I'm coming up on something like 470.
Wow.
But even just the Mini Cooper with the graphic, I mean, like the wall, walking up on the wall, the windows and seeing it, that was really, really cool, man. I mean, you have to understand, if it was in your backyard to 12 of your buddies, I probably would have done it. That it was 150 people or whatever it was. All the kids that we got to meet, it was really cool, man. That's why I want to do all these things, because that was never supposed to happen.
Yeah, that was a really fun one. It was actually about 350 people. It ended up selling out, which is kind of amazing. And all on the website for this, which I'll post afterwards, I'll post up a photo of the wall you just mentioned. And because we basically filled every single window of the building that the event took place in with big photos of your face, basically like 20 feet tall. And then we got Mini sponsored us with a car, and then put graphics with your name and everything and the name of the event down the side of the car. So anyway, I'll post some photos of all that.
It was really cool. I mean, who else has come since then?
We had a big Canadian name named Terry O'Reilly. He is like an advertising copywriter guy, but he hosts a radio show in Canada called Under the Influence, which is all about advertising and marketing and design. He's kind of a bit of an icon in Canada. And then last year we had Ellen Lupton.
Oh, yeah. Okay. It's good to see you guys going up the food chain a little bit, considering you started in some risky territory. Good to hear.
I think the fact that you had come here was why Ellen agreed to do it.
She's always been very sweet when I'm around her. And that's great, man. I'm just glad to see you have people coming out there. What was cool is even the remote parts of the world, there's design there. The experience with you guys, how nice it was, how beautiful it was, going up on that bluff and looking over the place. I'm just so thankful, that you guys allowed me to do it. So thank you.
Well, it was a huge, huge treat for everyone here, too. Obviously, it is a long distance for you to come, so we very much appreciated it. That event brought out not only designers and illustrators and that, but I mean, there was people who just came out just out of curiosity because they are familiar with you and familiar with field notes and all that kind of stuff. So it was kind of cool. It was like most of our events are more pocketed in terms of who's coming, and that one was wide open. The whole community came out.
Pure, raw animal curiosity. Who the fuck is this face on the side of this 20 feet tall?
They were like, what is that?
What kind of meat is that? What, just gross. Hey, I'd go to that thing too, I mean, Lee and I will play this game when we go on the road, and she'll be like, last time we were in Omaha, where'd we eat? And I can't remember. I just can't remember. But I can remember the room. I can remember eating the fish and chips place. I can remember junking. I can remember a lot of it,
Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, are you busy these days? Are you still, working from home and stuff?
Things have been really busy. I mean, up until the whole coronavirus thing going on. But other than that, everything was busy. And that'll all come back around again once we get past all this that we're in now. So.
Oh, yeah. There'll be, I think, a weird explosion of commerce and an explosion of culture. And so what if we put our lives on hold? I mean, really, this has forced me to stop myself and say, wow, like, how fragile are we? How fragile is your whatever sense of self, that like, this is just going to go forever. You get to go jump on planes and then go talk about yourself and entertain, do workshops. And it's not just talking about myself, but, try to, show people what I do a little bit closer. We were doing a lot of those the last couple of years. Also to tap into, my Michigan Midwestern sense of worry. Where I'm from, you don't bank on anything. And the idea that I saved everything for a rainy decade or for now. It's been a weird thing. So, when this went down, I got to kind of go to Lee and be like, we're going to be all right. And I think a lot of it was also just prepping, as maybe the weird term, but really preparing myself for when this stuff goes away. Because all these years to go and do all this stuff, I just always waited for it to go away. I have to be realistic. It's not realistic to think that this shit is just going to continue to go talk, to go entertain, to go whatever you want to call it. It was never supposed to happen. But, 9 years of it. So I just always knew this could stop any second. And when it does, I better have my shit together. And then it did. And it did. Now, we haven't been able to leave, but that's all right. It's been a welcomed break and a chance to really, think about what do I like to even do? Play my guitar, make money, make logos, make things, I guess go talk about myself on the road. But, to be home and be like, I've been playing with my Legos and having a blast and getting lost. I've been playing Tetris and trying to beat this young lady, Jacqueline Poole. Maybe you know her. She lives in Toronto. Anyway, my friend, maybe you know her. You guys have passed in an airport somewhere. But, she's got a 470,000 point record on Tetris, NES.
Wow.
I just broke 401. So these are small, pitiful pursuits. But I'm playing Lego. I'm playing Tetris. I'm working out every night. I lost about 2 ounces in my earlobe. And then, 2 weeks into that, it was like, whoa, any job that comes down the old pipe, I'm taking it. So I took a bunch, and now I am fucking slammed. Thankful, it hasn't changed all that much, So, I hope you're busy,
Yeah, and I've been busy, and it's been fun here because I've also had a chance to work on the personal projects that I've been wanting to do for years. Like today, I sent a bunch of skateboard designs off to a company.
Cool.
And that's kind of a dream I've had since I was a kid. I've been skating since I was a child, and it's like I've never had my graphics on a deck.
It's just kind of embarrassing that it took this shit for you to, all of us.
It is.
For me to go and stop the mechanism of me just trying to bulldoze a life out of this and make money and figure things out and pay taxes and better to stop that and just go enjoy playing with my Legos. It's that's just embarrassing to me. It shouldn't have been like that. It should have been, of course it takes some weirdness with this stuff, of course, but I'm just glad to hear that, man, because I'm hearing that a lot with friends or even just shit like this. I don't want to go back. It's been incredible. I don't want to go back. You hear all this kind of, sort of NPR-ish, analysis, curious analysis of we're reconnecting to what matters, each other,
Yeah.
Talking and sharing. And it isn't just about commerce and making money. And we're around each other again. And I think, this sort of curiosity of we can't lose that. We can't lose that when we go raging back into this thing. Let's not forget how nice it is to have dinner together. Let's not forget what it's like to have a night where you don't do shit, where you just get to go make skateboards for your buddies. Or I get to, make some stupid Lego thing I've been making. And I haven't really felt that buzz in a long time, The last bunch of years, every time we go out to Target, get deodorants and a big 80-ounce pump lube. I like to get out there every couple weeks. You got to get that thing. It's that big, tall one with the big extra strength pump. We're out there getting our day-to-day life supplies. And I would buy, $50 of Legos every couple times. I'm just going to get a couple sets, and my girl just, that's $100 for that set. I don't know, who cares? So I have a lot of stuff downstairs I haven't even touched, and I've been kind of mixing them into the great sort is upon me, and I'm sorting things out. And I went back, and a lot of the shit I had when I was a kid, I have rebuilt. And who cares if it's good or bad or whatever? It's just been a blast. Last night, I finished the van that Lee and I go on the road with, the orange van.
Oh, yeah.
Couldn't quite get that one out to St. John's or whatever there, but built that thing. And, Lee was like, well, what's this scene going to be called? She says it with a smirk because, here's this 46-year-old water buffalo, fucking around with these, ages, 6 to 8 or whatever it is. And, here I am dinking around. I go, this scene's going to be called Aaron and Lee, almost end it all in the desert or something. When you were threatening to, I'll kill you, whatever, I'll kill you with a bat, whatever she was saying to me on the tour. Because then, you start to go look at like what people use Legos for. And the predictability, too. Like, first of all, they're all cute, and the little minifigs are this and that. And I made an Aaron Draplin minifig, and but it's like, what I kind of want to go do is like make a little scene where I'm like guillotining Don Trump or something. And there's a little lineup of all those other pieces of shit behind them. And while we're getting political, I loved what you said about the automatic weapon ban, and I'm right there with you. And, about fucking time. And I wish we could learn a little something from, I'm sorry for what happened. But I wish we had the guts and the fortitude to just do what, old Trudeau did.
Well, thank you. I'm surprised you saw that.
Well, you're on my shit. I look at these things. I go a lot deeper on stuff I shouldn't be going on either. I could use more Judd Haynes, believe me. All right. Anyway. Yeah.
Talking about all the funny things you've been doing, like the Lego and that, it's funny because my fiance has, she sat here for about 2 weeks during the last month and watched me just catalog my old comic book collection. I dug deep on that for like 2 solid weeks.
Fucking awesome. I have a buddy at Discogs who, the last time he came out here, he was doing something in Portland, like some kind of a record fair that Discogs puts on, regional record fairs or something. And he was out here working that or hanging out at that. So, of course, I go to this record thing. You can buy records. There's all these vendors set up. And blah, 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 blah. But this is what he says. He says, you could catalog your entire vinyl collection. I remember saying, what are you talking about? He goes, listen, we'll come and do it for you. Because then we, as this service, then when you go onto Discogs, you can see everything you have, because there has been many times on the road record collecting where I'll buy something and then get home and go, son of a bitch.
Yeah,
I already have the, like, I'm trying to think of a band that you would strike out. Like, Judd gets home and he's already got that No Doubt 10 record box set in a wood case. He's already got that fucking Smash Mouth, platinum edition. No, I don't know. This is like, I got home and I was like, it was my 4th copy of it. Like, how? That's just stupid. It was like a C in the cake or something. And like, so these guys are going to, help me. Well, how they do it is they come over and they have a little bar scanner thing, and it just goes bleep on the UPC code, and it goes bloop right into your, it goes off of some database. And then the idea is you can go onto your Discogs, here I am in, Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I can look on my Discogs real quick and go, do I have this, 4th copy of the Dirt Bombs or whatever the hell I'm picking up, and it's like, I haven't quite stepped to that because I've got 3,000-4,000 records. I'm turning around, you can hear my voice change because I'm looking at the record wall. But how many comic books do you have?
Oh my God. Actually, I wouldn't even be able to tell you how many. I know they were scattered all over the house for years. And like, I never had them all in one place before. This was the first time.
Were you surprised by the value, or did that go down? Because I have a buddy out here who's a big comic book guy, and he always says the value's all gone.
Well, no, I was blown away at the value of what they're worth now compared to, because I mean, some of these I've seriously bought a lot of these when I was a kid, and I've never really looked at them. They went in a box and got forgotten about. And so taking some of them out, I mean, especially it's kind of exciting, the ones that came out the year I was born, because I'm a 1974 kid, and it was just like, that was the year the first Wolverine, that was the year of the first Punisher. It's like there's a bunch of like big stuff happened that one particular year, and thankfully I've got those books, but anyway.
That's awesome. I mean, what a privilege to have that chance to do that. I got into that in about the early 90s, late 90s for just, I'd say one box worth, right? Like one of those white boxes filled. And I had a couple rare things, but I smashed my head on the punk rock and it changed everything. So what you see, I had a bunch of this stuff, and I had to tap out as far as like being on subscriptions and things. Cause our local comic book guy, you get like a call or something, and you would go down and pick up your latest issue. And I had to jump out of that. And I remember the disappointment on his face. He's like, this is our lifeblood, and I was I'm more interested in records, man, or whatever it was. But I was also more interested in like Fantagraphic stuff. And I mean, right around that time, a couple years later, I got my first, Jimmy Corrigan, Chris Ware. And about 8 years ago, 2012, I spoke in New York City, one of the many times. But one of my first times, it was a kind of a legitimate thing. It was this brand new conference, Armin Vitz thing. And there was Massimo Vignelli there. And at the time, I was just meeting Chip Kidd. And
Wow.
well, he has us over to his, Batman cave. And while we were there, we met John Hodgman, who's a client and buddy of mine to this day. We met Art Spiegelman.
Wow.
Holy shit, I knew about him. I was forced to write a paper on him.
Wow.
But then the guest of the night was Chris Ware. Because, him and, Chip Kidd are like real close buddies. So Chris Ware is there because he had a show, in New York. And that was the most uncomfortable exchange ever. I was a fan all the way back. And I said, to Chip Kidd, do you think he would sign, my original #1 Jimmy Corrigan, whatever. Acme novelty, whatever. And he was like, yeah. So I bring that thing. I've got it in its little sleeve and it's this weird size. And I kind of pull it out and I have my pen ready, Sharpie or something for him to sign it. And I go up to Chris Ware. I'm waiting for people to just get away from him because he's kind of the man of the hour at this party. And he is notoriously odd and quiet and the whole bit. And I knew about that. But Lee's like, fuck it. When are you ever going to meet him again? So we're there. We're stealing things, the whole bit. And then when I take a break from stealing, I go up to him and I just say, hey, would you mind signing this? And he doesn't accept my Sharpie. He kind of says, yeah, sure. He's real quiet and soft and nimble. And he like you could just break the fucking guy. Out of his jacket pocket, inside pocket, he pulls out a Micron .0005, whatever the hell that small one is, the .00005, whatever the fuck, to write the Lord's Prayer in the head of a pin kind of shit. Well, he pulls that out and opens the book all slow and goes right to the middle and he just puts to Aaron from Chris Ware. In like 2-point type. That's my greatest comic book story I've got. It was just, thank you, sir. And it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And I just, glowed the whole night. And I got to meet him. And he'd never remember, me or whatever.
Well, I was similar to you in the fact that at a certain age, I obviously grew out of comics, as most people do. And then I sold at 15, I sold my entire collection to a comic store in order to get the money to buy my first guitar.
Really?
And I came home with the guitar, so excited, ran in the door with the guitar and showed my dad. And he immediately was just like, where the hell did you get the money for it? And I told him I sold my comic collection down at the shop. And then I grabbed the guitar again and ran back out the door, all excited to go see my buddies. And what's amazing is my dad got in the car right after I left, went back down to that comic book store and bought the whole thing back, but didn't tell me for years. He gave me the collection back.
Oh, shit.
Like years and years later, he gave me the collection back when he knew I wouldn't be an idiot and sell it off again.
Oh, that is so... I mean, if you don't mind me asking, how much did you sell it for?
Oh, probably like $400 or $500.
Okay. And what was your first guitar that you got?
Oh, yeah. BC Rich Warlock, Blood Red.
God damn right it was. I would fucking hang this podcast up if it wasn't. That's the best. God damn it. Because, I had this broken Stratocaster, whatever. That's incredible.
I remember buying that guitar and being so happy.
Well, what year was that?
Oh, like 1989 or 1990 or something.
Right. That's when I got my first two. I mean, man, that is a great story because, the magic of your dad, in that moment, going and rescuing you from the folly of youth is so fucking great. So what you have in your collection now is still that original.
Yeah, still the stuff from when I was a kid. And as well as I've added some to it, of course, as an adult.
So wait, whoa. Now, do you have any analysis? You don't need to give the number. Yes, my shoe size is this. My social security number is this. No. Do you know what you have? Like how much you think you have?
For the whole collection now? I do now, yeah. Now after spending that couple of weeks cataloging it all.
Yeah, because about a year and a half ago, the next door lot here has a big tree. And it's a dead tree. And it's probably not going to fall. But if it did fall, I mean, it could fall on my new shop with my record wall, and all of my, all my records. And, my contractor was like kind of like nervous. He's like, listen, it's on their lot, but if it falls and hits your house, do you know what you have in your record collection? And I mean, it has got to be somewhere in the ballpark of $100,000. Because if you take 4,000 records and they're maybe 10 to 15 to 12, and then start doing this, like, I don't know, like some of these records, a lot of these records are $50. So if you take that and you say 4,000, let's just say 2,000 or $50, that's $100,000. So, what do I have? So I went and got this policy for, I think it was somewhere in the ballpark of like $500,000 in damages. In case something was to happen back here, I would, I'm paying, a couple $100 a month or something, it seems, $1,200 a year just to have that, insured, because fuck, my Flamin' Lips, my early Flamin' Lips, those are all $100 records, $80 records.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the stuff I have in here, these Red House Painters and all the crap I grew up with, I have the original copies all these years later. And I just never even thought about it in that sort of like larger, the perspective to be able to stop and pause and get a value on that. Go get that shit insured.
I was trying to find a copy of X-Men #1, and I started selling some records that I didn't listen to anymore out of my record collection in order to raise the money, because at that point it was about $5,000 to get an X-Men #1 in the condition that I could afford, and so I sold a bunch of records out of my collection, and in less than a year, sold $5,000 worth, and then was on the hunt for an X-Men #1. But what ended up happening was I had a great year that year. My income had gone up a couple tax brackets. And then, bam, of course, I get hit with way more taxes. And I needed to take the $5,000 and give it to Revenue Canada.
Yep. Just a shitty band that you had to sell. I don't know. Like, what would you lose in the mix? Would you have to,
You know what? Most of the stuff I got rid of wasn't even that bad. It was just stuff that I wasn't really listening to. I had, there's an old hip hop guy from Halifax, Nova Scotia that I collected in the late 90s and early 2000s. I collected almost every single thing he ever made, like independent wise, before he had ever been signed. And I still love this guy. Like, his music is amazing, but I had a bunch of cassettes. I don't have a cassette player. I have no way to play them. Some of these cassettes I'd never played once my whole life. And then I noticed on Discogs that they were like going for stupid prices. And so I was just kind of like, you know what? I'm hanging on to these just as a collector. I'm never going to listen to them. I might as well see if I can get towards this comic. So I sold them. And like one of the cassettes I got $1,600 for. Another one I got $1,200 for.
What? Oh my God. I mean, right. My buddy who is... Well, remain nameless here, but this fucking parasite, he just knows, like, do not throw out your rock and roll T-shirts, do not throw out your tapes, do not throw out your CDs, because about a year ago, when we were moving to the back here, what am I going to do? I have this wall of CDs. I burnt them all into the machine. Not to mention, I have a lot of that stuff on vinyl. I mean, 92% of it on vinyl. The stuff I couldn't get on vinyl, you just can't get it. So I call a couple places here in Portland and say, hey, I got a wall. And before you tell me it's not worth anything, I mean, hey, I've got every Flaming Lips, every Fugazi, every, that's just the Fs, whatever. There's stuff that, to the right, aging 44-year-old, it's going to matter. Every Sunvolt, C&K, Swerve Driver, Spiritualized, whatever, I'm going down the line. Okay, all the junk I grew up on. But she stops me and she goes, let me just put this into perspective. We have 2,000 Alanis Morissette, whatever little pill or whatever the hell that was. We have 2,000 of those in the back. We couldn't sell them for a nickel. So if you bring these in, we're not going to give you probably more than maybe 25 cents, even for the good stuff. Just the volume of it. And she just said, just keep it. It still works. And really, is it that big of a burden? It's 6 inches off the wall by about 4 feet, 5 feet wide. This 1,800 CDs I have. Just keep it. It's just cool. They're just such a big part of me. I just was like, well, if I can put that money towards something else. Then my buddy kind of goes, you have all those like singles and shit. Have you even looked at what some of that stuff could go on Discogs? So the first thing I pick out of my junk, some old Sparkle Horse or something, some little EP, it goes for $100 on Discogs. Then I started looking at other things and it goes for 2 cents. It's not even worth the time to like ship it. Some Richard Buckner or whatever garbage I have. So, it just sent me reeling off, like, before I go nuts and try to, I don't know if you guys, what's the Canadian version of Marie Kondo? Some asshole named Gordy Kondo or something. I don't know. Everyone's named Gordy up there, you fucking Canadian son of a bitches. Well, I stopped myself and I was like, man, I went and looked at all my old tapes, and I've got, early Discord stuff and all that junk I grew up on. I went and bought it for $6 at the department store. I still have all of it.
That's
and
awesome.
I'm never going to get rid of it. It's just too cool to even have. I mean, a lot of the junk, even beyond that, just my decorated tape case is worth so much more to me. The compilations that I had, hand drawn and made, that's the stuff. The idea that, like, my buddy Fred, his mom's always threatening to throw his shit out. And it's like, that's been going, Fred's 52 years old. It's been going since he was probably 16. But, he's been out in Portland, 30 years or something. The last time I went home, I just made sure that all my old Thrasher magazines and skateboard magazines and things were just not trashed. They were in a nice box, vertical, safe, dry. They're sitting on ice back at my mom and dad's house. I never threw any of that shit out. I still have all my collections, The idea that someone's looking for an $1,800 wrap tape that is just fucking amazing. And also kind of nauseating. Like, really? What is he going to do with that? It's just going to sit there? I'll never. Then again, we watch people buy our field notes for $800, $700, $600, from original 3-pack sealed, and all this kind of shit. I don't know what part of us that, I'm part of it too. My dad was you heard the story, was a, raging master junker and collector and everything else. And his quote was, "I just want one of everything," all the basics. I'm glad that you got your comics back. And here's the deal. If you had to thin the herd to pay some shit, man, who gives a shit? That's what I guess that's what I'm getting at. It's like, I'm conflicted because, like, I'm not touching those CDs. And then I'm charmed because it's like, damn, those tapes are just sitting there. But, like, my mom has a ton of field notes, right? Has them all, right? And every time I'd make a set, I'd send her, 4 or 5 sets. She'd give out to some of the friends. And, then after a while, we started seeing the values going crazy. And then we'll just have these conversations where I'll just kind of say, you know what? They're just sitting there. Fuck it. Let's sell them. If some weirdo who missed out wants to pay 10 times the price, $100, maybe that's just your little nest egg, Mom, how long is this shit going to last for? That's what we talk about. So, because it's like, we let them go, and then we've got her rent paid for that much longer,
Would she sell them under a fake name, or did she sell them as your mom?
No, the thing is one of the scary things about when field notes started to take off is, the fans were behind it. I'm pretty accessible. I've made my parents pretty accessible. And then people were reaching out to her to say, hey, would you ever want to sell it? And I said, Mom, don't even entertain that shit. That's just weird. It's passive aggressive. They're coming after me. Hey, do you think this, that, this, and this? And then, they're going to go right to my mom. That's just weird,
Yeah.
But we talk about it because it's like, listen, my dad died and had a mountain of awesome stuff, and we don't really know how to recoup the value on it. These old signs, Coca-Cola things, a 36 Ford, which is worth $20,000 or something. Wow. Not to mention, you go home, it's just sitting there. It's a burden for my mom now, and then, well, what do we do? So we're trying to actively figure that shit out. I've had buddies swoop in and say, hey, I'll take advantage of that. It's like, no, you won't. No, you won't. Here's a fun little story. The first year after my dad died, this is the chance that we can go have the garage sale of garage sales, right? Like, this is it. That son of a bitch is not around anymore. Because, my dad would go up into the rafters and bring down the 40 chairs that he was rat-holing away. Of course, they all have value. And then he'd have to put all this shit back when he would, 39 chairs back. And it would just be like, what are you doing? But they all had value. And that's what he did every garage sale. So first story is this, that right after my dad died, we'll either say it's a multiple choice. It's either a family member, a family friend, or someone that we didn't even know. One of the above basically swoops in and is like hanging out. And I remember my dad saying, I don't want that asshole around. If I ever go, this guy's a junker. I don't want him around. He's tried to lowball me over the court, knowing he's just waiting this shit out. And I'll tell you what, that first garage sale, the first guy to show up was this motherfucker. And I had to basically get in between him and my mom and just say, there's no deals here. You're not taking this stuff because my dad died and getting some closeout deal and then going and selling it for a marked up price that, you parasite, whatever. I was real gentle about it, but it scared the shit out of me because he was literally, people are using the word literally wrong these days, but he was the first guy to show up that morning. Wow. He was like, at 6 a.m. and I just was like, no, that's not going to happen. I'll burn this shit before I let you make a profit on it. Yeah. You are going to pay what it's worth to my mom so you can at least sleep at night. Okay, that's the first story. Second story is about 3 summers before my dad died. We were back there having one of his big garage sales. He's dragging shit out. He's getting up into, he's 66 years old on the ladder and it's sketchy. And we're all yelling and what are you doing? And you're going to get hurt. And I'm having to lug shit and he's having to lug shit. And we get all of it into this big pile on probably like a Thursday night in the garage. And there's this pile of stuff. And then my dad kind of goes, well, what time are we getting up tomorrow morning to put all this out? And I kind of, I just stop and I go, man, fuck all that. Not only do we spend a day getting it all out. Now we got to spend a morning putting it all up. We got to spend money to tell people to come out here. We got to hope they're even going to buy this bullshit. How much do you think you even have in this pile right here? My dad kind of stops. His hands up against his head. He's scratching. He says, 4,200, 200. He goes, geez, if I could hit $1,500 for this pile, that would be amazing, Aaron. If we sold, I get this one. And I just stop and I go, I'm going to cut you a check right now for $1,500. And we're going to take this pile of shit right now down to St. Vincent's, Paul, right down to the thrift store, because this is just stupid. If that's what the value is, I'll just give it to you out of my life savings, Dad. What are we doing? And then check it out. We're done with it. You get your money. And then I get my weekend with my mom and dad. And then we're done. And that's exactly what we did. And we just I just took the wind out of him because it wasn't the money. It was the battle he wanted, It was the going to war with some asshole, who tries to get a good deal. Like, remember, my dad, that grifter, he stole that shit and, wormed it out of people all those other years, these old, chairs and things and junks and treasures. And now when we go home, we've had a number of yard sales and my mom will just say, there's value to this pile. Just take it. Just go donate it. You don't need to give me the money, whatever. Aaron, let's just put it back into the world. And it's like, yeah, good. Let's just do that. And then there's stuff where it's like, this needs to go on eBay. This is rare. Some collector's going to want this thing. And then shit, who's our advocate? So it's kind of a weird thing. Now, you said your dad had an antique store. So whatever happened to all that stuff?
Yeah, almost the exact same thing happened to my mom. Only a few days after Dad passed away, up the driveway, as he would always say, a car came up the driveway and out came one of the kind of rival antique dealers.
Imagine that.
Who'd, heard my dad passed away and just came around basically wondering if there was a sale on or if what's mom going to do with all the stuff that's still in the shop.
It's a burden for your mom. I'm just trying to take it off her hands.
Yeah. And this is a guy who never came around because he and my dad didn't necessarily get along.
Just the position that puts you in, where you have to go defend your dad. I mean, these guys, some of the scumbags that came out. I remember at one point, my dad has this thing called a lollipop Coca-Cola sign. And it was something to the effect of $1,500 or something. The guy walks right into my mom, right over her shoulder, just like, it's 10 feet behind my mom, and just goes, how much on the lollipop sign? My mom goes, we're just not selling that. We're just not selling that right now. It's just, we haven't moved it yet, but we're just not interested in selling that right now. And the guy goes, no, you need to tell me a price. Like, just the aggressiveness, like the aggression. So I get in front of my mom and just kind of go, hey, you want to talk about that? You come talk to me. What's your best price? He goes, let me look at it. And he goes, it's low ball. I mean, I think it was like $1,500 or $1,600 or something. And he says something like, well, I'd give you $400 right now. Of course you would. I said, you drive back to wherever you're coming from and you call me. And we negotiated for about 2 weeks. This is terrible. But about 2 weeks, I had him at like $1,100. And I finally just said, I go, you know what? We're just going to keep it.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? It's just kind of cool. And you know what? You're ready to give 1,100? That's interesting. There's a guy that's going to do 1,200 here. Never heard from the guy back and never heard back. I just want to kind of tell him to go fuck himself because it was just kind of like, come on, man. Like, you're predatory. My mom, man. Like, this guy was just a junker and he knew what he could get for it. And he's going to pay $500 for it that day. But here's the funny part. All these years later, my mom will say shit to me like, we should have just sold it for the 700 or whatever that day. We should have just, it's still sitting out there. I know. It's, who knows? What do
I just looked it up in Google though, and that's a pretty nice looking sign. So if it's still sitting there, at least it looks nice.
It's cool. He has tons, and that's not even the good stuff. It makes me thankful I grew up around all that shit. The empathy to for someone who's on the skids, my dad would help along the way. The idea that someone was in a pinch and my dad would pay full price for it. I watched him do that. Mm-hmm. And then other times where my dad was like heroic, like, fuck these guys. We're going to go take them for all they have, and he would do that also. It was always kind of for the little guy. And someone said, what's the greatest record that you've ever found junking? And it was my dad saying to me, like, one of those things where he would go, hey, you see that yard sale sign? I don't want to go, Dad. I don't want to get back. We're in downtown Traverse City, Michigan. I want to get back to the couch and chill. I'm coming from Portland. I want to get home. And Dad goes, listen, this is the one, Aaron. This is about 2012 or 2000. It was a year before my dad died. And he says, look, remember, when I was 13 years old and we saw the yard sale sign, he'd go, hey, just think. Some kid went out to California. He was a skateboarder. He died out there. They had to send all of his stuff back. And this is the yard sale, Aaron, that has all the skateboards for $1 because they don't know what to do with it. And and I get all excited and we'd go and then there would be nothing. There'd be nothing. And he'd go, well, you just never know. But he'd do that and he'd get me all primed up and then there'd be nothing. And then about 2012, we're coming from downtown Traverse City, and there's this little kind of pole barn. It's right on my mom and dad's road, and we've been going past this thing, the 25 years they lived there. And I guess I don't remember ever seeing a yard sale there, but my dad definitely did. And he says, hey, asshole, this is the one with records for like $0.25. Records, rare records for like $0.25. And I just go, that shit worked when I was 14, you gorilla. But it doesn't work now. And he goes, hey, you never know. You never know. So we go, pull into the thing. I'm all bent out of shape. Oh, shit. I got to get back. I got to work, Dad. I'm back here for only so much time, whatever. We walk in. He's going all the way to the back to probably look at an old pile of wood or something stupid. But as he's walking past, he walks and he just goes, snaps and points at this stack of records. And I walk up. And the very first record on the top is the freewheeling Bob Dylan Mint for $0.25.
Wow.
And I just pick it up and I go, well, we've got a sale here, And then I go digging through the rest of the stuff and there's Fugs, Grand Funk Railroad, Frank Zappa, but it's all beat to shit, waterlogged, fucked up, right? So what that means is that part of the record collection was probably on a wet carpet in a basement, got wet, got damp, trashed the records, got moldy. But that Bob Dylan might have been one shelf up and it missed it, right? And that day I bought, 12 or 15 records for, $0.25 or $1 a piece or something. And it was just that moment of like, that's the magic of this stuff, And I try to find that buzz in graphic design and less and less and less, the kids always say, what are your techniques? It's like, well, fuck, go junking, go outside, go to a place. But what do you do now? So here's a pro tip, youngsters, if you're listening. Do a little Google. I don't know what you guys got up in Canada, but do a little Google for a state sale antique auction. And you will find some 60-year-old fidget who took some 9,000 DPI photos of everything under the sun trying to sell this shit to other middle-aged fidgets, and that shit's just for the taking. What a reference that stuff is. They took every picture of every corner of that Lego box or whatever. They took a picture, high resolution. They don't know what the hell they're doing. You download the thing. It's at 7,000 DPI. It's amazing. So that's a little pro tip for all of us who are locked down, in this weird time of quarantine. So, what was the question again, Judd?
I actually got a question for you. You were talking a bunch about records, of course, and junking and picking all these records up. When you were a kid, did the album cover jackets play into you becoming a graphic designer in any way?
Oh, yeah. In fact, last night, as I was going to bed, listen, just so you guys all know, completely buck naked. I just want to be we're talking buck naked. I'm trying to fall asleep, and the last thing I clicked on was The Police. There's a documentary on, I think it's Netflix or one of them, about the Police, and it was so good. The Police, the stuff was so graphic. I still love those records as much as I did, but it absolutely grabbed me because I remember when I got Synchronicity, and it was like, damn, like it's so, primary colors, and it's just the photography is cool. And the next one I would have gotten, remember, I'm like 11 years old. The next one I would have gotten that really, punched me in the face was, it felt so smart, was Sting's Dream of the Blue Turtles. I was like 12 years old, and they were heavy concepts about Russia and vampires and, whatever the hell else, and it just felt like I was like this 12-year-old goofy kid being let on to something smart, contemporary, and adult, and that was through Sting. And I just remember like the photography was so dramatic, and he just, he's like this good-looking guy, and I knew him in the Police, but here he was. It just felt smart. Now, about a year later, I got the first taste of what would become my sort of musical genre simply as a gag gift. And what it was, one guy says, what if we go and get like the weirdest tapes ever? So the gift I was given that year was Locust Abortion Technician by the Butthole Surfers. I was just turning 13, and it was the most dangerous, Satan, all that shit, the fucking greatest. And it was so weird. And here I am listening to U2, just getting tipped off to REM, listening to the radio, listening to a little bit of heavy metal, and didn't know about Metallica yet. And the first things that I get, now, first of all, these guys, they didn't like the gifts. I got someone a Dead Milkman. Someone else I remember they got the Dayglow Abortions. Now, this is all good, clean fun. And I got the Butthole Surfers. I have that tape still to this day. It's in my basement. It's one of my originals. But it opened the door to the weird. And I liked it. And I would listen to this stuff. And then, next thing you know, I'm a skateboarder. I'm seeing the T-shirts. I'm getting into heavy metal with Metallica and, Anthraxes and all the big ones and all that. I'm getting into some hardcore. I'm getting into Misfits. I'm getting into some punk rockery. I love the Dead Kennedys. Of course, I love liner notes, art. A couple years later, it's the Sub Pop Explosion, Nirvana's. And then the first Red House Painters record is I'm slapped in the face in about 92. And that changed everything. It sent me down a path of all this kind of softer indie rock. But here's the deal. To answer your question, that's my entire musical, start. Of course it did. It still gets me to this day.
But how old were you when you got to design your first record?
Yeah, I was 8 or 9, 81, 82 would have been Metal Health. Whatever year Quiet Riot came out, Come On, Feel the Noise. I got that tape.
Yeah, no, that's when you bought. But I'm asking, how old were you when you got to design your first record?
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I didn't even see. I'm so, as part of my narcissism program, I don't listen to the question. Whatever you're doing, Judge, it's nice to hope you and the lady are doing good. Hope your mom's doing good. But talk about me a little more. Sorry. It would have been probably 1993 for some buddies back home who were called the Dopes. And 94, 95 probably. And I did a pretty good little job. I still have my one copy of it. And I did a CD. But my first record, the actual first record I got to design was probably it was a band called Danova out here in Portland, which is kind of a proggy, Sabbathy, deep purpley kind of a thing here in Portland, right down to the bangs on my buddy Greg. He just rips. This guy has given his life to rock and roll, but real heavy, all this kind of shit, real heavy. Danova. And I got to do a split with Earthless, Danova, and a band called Lecherous Gaze. And, you get the labels, you get the stuff. And that probably would have been about 2005 or 6. I'm looking at a copy right now. And it's like, if I could show you guys, this whole pile of stuff, that turns into this is 2011. Okay, so that would have been the first one. I only get to do probably 1 or 2 a year. The last one I would have done would have been some stuff for the old 97s at last Christmas, because they made a perennial record called Love the Holidays, and now it comes out every Christmas. That's 2 Christmases ago. I'm proud to report I've done the last 7 or 8 Richmond Fontaine records, which is my favorite Portland band, Richmond Fontaine. Look them up, youngsters. So I got to do their records and all their CDs and all their goodies and, build all the shit for iTunes and stuff. I mean, I know you've done a lot. I've seen the stuff, but it's a rare thing. 1 or 2 pieces a year.
Do you take much direction from the band, or they kind of let you kind of run with it?
Oh, no. It's all them. Of course, I do my best to, make something cool. But it's like, well, let's look at the last 16 things you did. Or not even that. Let's look at the last 4 things you did, because they've only ever made 3 things, right? And there's always a little pep talk of like, let's get real here. You're not going to be making 1 of these a year for the rest of your life. You're going to be lucky if you're able to pull off 7 of these things. You're not the Flaming Lips with 27 things under their belt. You're not Guided by Voices with 1,200 under your belt. Like, how many records did Bush make? Who gives a shit? But they probably made about 6. And it's like, whatever that means, some big successful thing like that, probably did 6 or 7 things. If you go get the entire thing, a bunch of singles and bullshits and stuff. So I have to say to them, like, first of all, the last record you did was black. The record you did before that was dark. The record you did before that was black. Like, don't do black. So I make a target and just kind of say, well, you were red, then green, then yellow, so let's just do blue. Let's make sure that just the way that these things spill out in your discography, that we are being respectful of how they're going to look on iTunes. Not to mention, let's make sure your name is readable. We're not Lightning Bolt, where you get to throw just puke on a cover and you can't even tell what it is. That's fine. But no, this is about commerce and about getting people to click on it and being able to read it and then put it, frankly, those Richmond Fontaine records, we just made sure that we were never doing 2 things in a row, So when they come to me, I'll just give them this little pep talk and say, hey, what do you want to be? Do you want photos? Do you want stuff? Do you want illustration? Now's the time. And then I get to mocking it up. If they want illustration, we have to go find an illustrator. If I can pull it off, I'll pull it off. But it's really up to their sort of dialogue. And I'll say, hey, show me things I've made that you like. Show me things that your colleagues have made that you want to stay away from. Like, who are you going on tour with? You're going on tour with so-and-so for the next couple of years? Don't make what their cover looked like. You know what I mean? We have to, let's be tactical and be pragmatic about how we do this, because, this is going to go away in a couple of years. And then you're going to be on to the next damn thing. So let's think about what the t-shirt looks like. And let's think about what, how it looks on the iTunes, all the way up to, you better make fucking vinyl. You're making 1,000. I want 100 copies just for me, just to give away to people, So I remember years ago, Richmond Fontaine, the first record, I was so pumped. We used to think the freeway sounded like a river. Long titles. And I got so excited when the vinyl came out because I'm a fan. We get the record and I say, hey, can I buy some of these records? Because I don't expect the band really any money from them, much less, maybe give me a couple copies. That's fine. A little bit of money, fine, great. I order 100 records from a guy in the UK, and I get a bill for $2,700 or something. And every copy I gave away was like $22.
Wow.
That's what the cost is, bud. You bought 100 of them at $21. Like, you motherfucker, man. I still have a little stack of 8 or 9 of those here. and maybe one of those could be put into a special thing that's out to Newfoundland. If you're lucky. I mean, what about you? I mean, when you do it, how do you say it's what I say goes, or I mean, I'm sure you take direction from the band.
Yeah, you have to sometimes. I mean, for me, it depends from band to band. I work with a lot of bands that do let you do whatever you want, which is great. And then I work with others that come in and specifically know what they want. And at that point, it's like you basically just do the best job you can to make it look as good as you can for them. Do you factor the music in? Like if you're working with a brand new band, like do you listen to the records and does that influence the art you're going to make?
Yeah, of course. I mean, first things first, you try to like the things that you listen to. There's a band called Red Fang, heavy metal band, barging, dirgy, heavy, awesome, Mastodon, that sort of shit. The guy that does it's this guy named Orion Landau, who is the art director for Relapse Records, here out of Portland. For years and years and years, he did all the Relapse shit, right? That's the heaviest of heavy, stuff. High on Fire and Mastodons and bullshits and all these funny names like a Krakakran and whatever the fuck else. Who cares? But he did those things and it was always black and everything darker. And Red Fang comes along and it's kind of like, these guys are kind of goofballs and they're just don't take themselves too seriously. And the records have always been awesome. From the very first one when it was on their own, they just had the right set of sensibilities. So I always try to think of that in anything I'm doing. Like, first of all, it's my job to make this thing awesome for the people who made it. It was rare that they ever came up with it. It was rare they ever recorded it. It was rare that they had the money to wherewithal to put it out. So I better be respectful of that shit. I better be respectful that it's such a rare thing. So, like when I work on Richmond Fontaine, it's all of the above. Like, fuck, man, give me the new record. And it's always like this just big pile of shitty MP3s. And I get to listen to it ahead of time because I'm a fan still, right? Like just selfishly, I just want the new shit so I can listen to it. To wrap my head around it, it's like, okay, yeah, this is the spirit of this one. It's lonely, it's sad, it's big, it's whatever. And the last time I did that was with this band called the Drive-By Truckers. And I have been a fan since 2002. But he approached me and said, hey, we need a little bit of help with the cover. We're having a hard time with the type or whatever it is. And it wasn't that hard. If you go look this one up, it's just a piece of type along the bottom and a photo and a little bit of toning, and that was it. But really, at that point, it's just sort of like my best foot forward. It's like I'm just trying to protect him and say, don't screw this up, whatever. I know you guys are under pressure to get it done, to get it out, to put it to get it toured, to do all this other stuff. Like, just let me be the advocate for you to come in and make sure you're in good hands. It wasn't the most heroic of a record cover. I'd rather just do this purely for the love. So there is a lot of that stuff. When I say it on podcasts like this, then you get people, right, why don't you do our shit purely for the love? And it's like, no, you're a 311 cover band, you piece of shit. Whatever, whenever. You guys have 311 up there? Horse shit from America, all right? I know. Hey, for every bare naked ladies that you guys are all recoiling from, we got our, I don't know what we have down here. Some stupid ass spin doctors or something. Okay, next question.
I find a lot of the records that you've done in the past have a bit of a unique look, each to their own, as opposed to kind of looking specifically like a Draplin project. But the All Tiny Creatures one is very much got you all over it.
Yeah.
And then I read that might be kind of the start for the whole thick line style.
Yeah. I listened to the record and it kind of sounds like a little bit of a C in the cake, kind of a bubbly, frothy kind of a thing. And it's got, kind of a, Stereo Lab, maybe a little bit of that. And I don't know, So I listened to it and I kind of, wow, it's kind of like tropical colors and stuff. And I'm riffing on song titles, but also it comes with a really interesting little asterisk. Justin Vernon from Bon Iver had sang some tracks on there. And what that meant to me was like, man, these guys have their shit together, whatever that means. It turns out they kind of didn't. They were a bunch of young guys from Wisconsin, just like old Bon Iver, but he was a big indie starlet at the time. That brought a lot of weight, saying, whoa, we got Bon Iver singing on a couple of these tracks. That's great. So what happens is I do a bunch of record covers, and I'm trying to show different styles and different things, and I'm showing, I'm taking literal things and saying, hey, a song called Harbors. Let's just make a harbor. I don't know. And I throw a bunch of shit at them, and they just didn't like anything. They just didn't like it. You get the sense of like, ooh, did I screw something up? Am I not doing the right job here or whatever it was? And we kind of go back to it. And what I did was, out of frustration a little bit, I did this like just kind of quick comp. They just didn't like my first round of shit. But I show them this comp, and that's the cover that you see, and I say, now what if we get an illustrator and we actually illustrate all the elements from the songs? Cargo maps, valves and hatches, aviation class, little bits and pieces, something, whatever a tine feature, who knows, plankton. Okay, here's the comp. I whip those vectors out. I send the shit off, and they just write back, and they're like, we like that. That's what we like. I stumbled onto something where it was like, damn, what, I don't trust my own inclination to just make them something cool. Of course I can make them something cool, but no, I'm trying to, make them something I've never made before. And in the end, that's exactly what I did. You know what I mean? That's exactly what I did. And out of that just came this weird sense of like, shit, it can be, this kind of shitty comp, or whatever you want to call it, And that's all it was. It was a little comp. And then I took that thing and said, you like that? That was just a 20-second thing. Okay. Exploded it out a couple other ways. They went crazy and we were cooking. It was really fun and exciting. And, before we knew it, I had the whole thing built out. I'm looking at all the rounds right now as we're, rounding down to the final things. But what I need to go find is I want to find the stuff that they didn't like, because there might be some gold in there.
The other thing, when I was flipping through your book, you were talking about going to the 2002 Sasquatch Music Fest. You mentioned Kathleen Edwards as one of the acts you were going to go and see, and we're excited to see. And she's a friend of mine and a client of mine. I was very excited to see that was someone who was on your radar back in 2002. How does she fall into your story?
Holy shit. Let me tell you a story about Kathleen Edwards. When I went to Minneapolis in 1998, and I remember the first show I saw there that was kind of like this country alternative stuff, whatever you want to call it, was Richard Buckner. He was doing an in-store at an Amazon, at a Barnes & Noble. So I drive myself down to this Barnes & Noble. There's a bunch of moms and shit running around and babies and whatever else. And here's Richard Buckner setting up his little guitar and tiny little amp, and he's going to play this little kind of mellow set. And I was just blown away. I mean, I love the records. I love what his deal, but I also love this new genre that I found. I'm in Minneapolis. No Depression's the magazine I read cover to cover. And listen, for every time I struck out on something, it would be like, something with a jug band, like a jug being played or something. It's like, man, this is just too weird for me. Like, I don't really like all this kind of like back to like faux roots or the most like there's what's that band out of like I shouldn't name any bands, but fuck it, this band Drag the River, and they're all singing about like drinking and liquor and like hangovers. What the fuck are you talking about? Like it just was these like it became this parody, hard living and hard drinking. Okay. Somewhere there, I'm going to see the Jayhawks when they would come through town. I'm going to see like Freddie Johnson and stuff. Well, somewhere in there, Kathleen Edwards was an up-and-coming Canadian artist, and I just really kind of fell for it, like I like the songs. I got to see her, at that Sasquatch, and she was beautiful and tough and kind of cool, and I loved the record. And I listen to those records to this day. Well, she won, what do you guys got? Juno Awards and all that shit. And I know it's a big deal up there. And we all like, what's a Juno Award? But, I know it's a big deal. And she won one of those and all this kind of, that's, we would be told these things when you read her stuff. It's like, oh, she's a big outfit up there. But when I went to Ottawa, I was, oh, fuck, man, I'm in the town of, who are my heroes? Well, there's a couple punk bands, there's a couple of this, there's a couple of that. And this is the land of Kathleen Edwards. And damn it, like that last record of hers, Voyager, I didn't necessarily, I wasn't really into it, but I loved the record cover. It was beautiful. Did you do that? I'm getting it. Hold on. Talk about something great. Talk about, becoming a state and getting a proper American flag. Hold on. I got to get it out. I have it here. Hold on. There it is, buddy. Layout and design by God damn it. See, I remember just seeing that record cover and being like, fuck yeah. Midwest. I get it. She's coming from this part of Canada across this stuff. This thing, awesome. So that was you, man.
The idea for the Great Lakes was hers. She came to me with that, which was very cool. Pretty exciting. I'm actually really glad I asked about her now because I'm pretty excited to know that there's something that I designed in your house.
You know what? When you see her, just tell her that I love her records. I hope she's okay and everything, and I'm a fan. Well, I'm just looking at this here. Personal life. Colin Cripps, who was Canadian record.
Colin Cripps plays in a group called Blue Rodeo.
Yes.
Who are another one of my clients, and they're one of Canada's biggest bands.
Oh, I know. You don't listen. I can play that song all the way through. That it hasn't hit me yet. 5 days in May. Oh, those are classics. So wait a second. What year are those songs? Yeah, that's not like 6 years ago?
No, those songs are probably 20-year-old songs.
Yeah, so like mid 90s, right?
They've been in a band for like 35 years.
I remember looking him up and being like, oh, yeah, the Jim Cuddy band. Okay. And then this is where I got turned on to, all of this stuff. I just like when you click on Blue Rodeo, all the guys look like Trailer Park dudes. Now, listen, that Trailer Park boys, they all kind of got that look. They got that look. It could be a member of Anvil just as easily as, and everyone's always got to wear a fucking hockey jersey. Enough.
It's because they probably were just playing hockey.
I'm sure they were. So, okay, God, what haven't we covered? Geopolitical repositioning of Middle Eastern interest. I don't know. What haven't we covered? But fuck, about 4 years ago, I was back home, and I went to a record sale in East Lansing, Michigan. And I noticed up on this big record wall, in these bins, these colored tags on the edges. And I was like, fuck. What it was our radio station, our college radio station in northern Michigan. NMC was the place, Northwestern Michigan Community College. And WNMC was the little shitty record, a little radio station we had there. But they had this incredible record collection. So when my buddies would play records there, we would go down there and you could see all the original Dead Kennedys and Black Flags, and they were all written all over. Don't play this song, don't play that. Because, you can't say stuff with shit or whatever, you get in trouble. And they had this color coding thing, and it was like they used 3 pieces of tape, whichever way they used it. So I see them in this bin, and I go, fuck, that means NMC sold all their shit to these record stores in Michigan, and now you're seeing the last tendrils of this stuff. Like, what happened to all the Dead Kennedys? Who knows what happened to that shit? Hopefully it got into the right hands. Well, I notice, 200 of these things, and I start flipping through them. I got the first 4 or 5 Blue Rodeo records for $0.25 a piece. And I have them. Outskirts, Diamond Mine Casino, like up to the first 4 up to Lost Together. I got them all, and they're just in killer condition. They have these weird, big WNMC on the cover. But I don't have 5 Days in July. I wonder if that's a hard record to get.
Well, it would be still in circulation here because their record label, they're signed to Warner and probably just keep on repressing it. But getting an original one would probably be hard to find.
Oh man, I love those couple songs, man. I mean, this is the thing. It's like that to me is, be it Canadian, be it whatever, but who gives a fuck? It's like roots rock, whatever you want to call it.
I've designed their last 4 records. It's been kind of a dream gig for me. It's a relationship we've had going for about 10 years now.
Oh man. Okay, quit fucking around and get me a signed copy of 5 Days in July, near mint, minimal ring. I want a first press. It turns out it hasn't been pressed on vinyl. I'm looking right now. Looks like it hasn't been pressed on vinyl. It's been pressed lots of CDs. It's been pressed in cassettes, but there isn't. Oh, here it is. Here's a 2 LP version of it from 2015. So there is a repress. And now, hold on. I'm going to go look because I'll bet you I fucking have it now that I'm thinking about it. Hold on. Look, here I am. I'm in the Blue Mountain, Blue Giant. Do I have a Blue Rodeo in here? It doesn't look, blonde redhead. I don't. So see, this gives me a reason to keep living. Maybe today I'll try to go get the 2 LP version here of that record. Damn. Did you do? Okay, so now I'm looking at Discogs. So now I'm gonna get a little judgy on Judd Haynes, and I'm gonna click on the 1,000 Arms. Did you do that one?
I did, yeah.
That's beautiful.
That photo is a photo taken by my friend Mark Bennett, and it's a photo in Newfoundland.
Well, I remember seeing this and going, ooh, what's that creepy little R? I like it. Hey, good job. Fuck, God damn it. Judd, you got to tell me about this stuff. And then I think, so you probably did the In Our Nature one too, right?
I did. That was the first one I did for them.
Have you met these guys?
What's funny is I've only ever met them once.
Ask them if there was did I miss a sale on selvage denim? That's what I'm wondering.
We hoard it all here in Canada. Everyone has it.
Fellas, did I miss a sale on black jeans? Because I think I must have. Like I love to hear that you did Blue Radio because I know they're like a Canadian treasure. You got to do something that I love. And that's enough for me. That's I will never look at those records again the same, knowing that you did it. I won't.
That's awesome.
Well, yeah, because that's the magic of this stuff. So however you got to that, they could have just done a fucking search and been like, well, Newfoundland designers. Boom. Well, there's one, and I don't know, a Canadian record, designer. I'm glad they didn't have some fucking asshole from Warner Brothers in LA do it. Records are still my very favorite thing to make because it's so immediate and, frankly, Blue Rodeo is probably a bad example to talk about because they've made 20 different records. But who else has done that? Rush? Sure. Who else has done that? Celine Dion? I don't know. But not the bands I like. They get 3 records.
I wanted to talk to you about your new Skillshare just for a split second and not necessarily ask you about it. I more just want to compliment you on it. Krista and I watched it and it was so fun, but also obviously educational. And I was thinking, I know it was targeted towards, other designers and illustrators and that who can learn a bunch of things from you. But I really felt it was one that musicians, so like any musicians that are listening to this podcast as well, I really think should go to Skillshare and check out Aaron Draplin's latest Skillshare class on making merch because it kind of is the 101 on how to beef up your merch table. I mean, you've been traveling all these years in the big orange van like a rock star, going and doing shows night after night and setting up the better merch tables than I see most bands set up and having all these amazing merch sales at the end of the night. I really feel like there's a lot of bands that could learn something from the way that you've been doing it all these years.
Oh, I appreciate that. I honestly, this is the first time I've even thought of it that way.
I watched it last night, and I mean, I'm watching it as a graphic designer, but also because almost all of my clients are music industry clients. As I was watching it, I was like, yeah, like my clients should be watching this. But anyway, Aaron, you're always so amazing with your time. The fact that you came all the way to Newfoundland when you were here, even I remember after the sound check, I was going to drive you back to the hotel because I knew you had work to do. And then you saw that the students were setting up their exhibit for their grad show. And rather than going back to the hotel to do work, you basically told me, you're like, no, I'm going to stay. And then you walked around and you met with every single student that was setting up an exhibit and looked at all of their work and all their portfolios. And they all got their pictures taken with you. And like a major day for all of them as young designers. I want to thank you so much for doing this today.
Oh, cool, man. Well, I'll tell you why. Because I'm never fucking going back to that uninhabitable hellhole. No. I don't know how you people living off fish and living off a coffee crisp. I don't know how you even live up there. If you guys are ever looking to adopt, you could hire me. You could wash me once a week out back with a big brush and a bucket of suds. And I'll be your kid. Well, you go that far. And we discussed this. Bonnie Prince Billy, we discussed rock and roll, we discussed playing, we discussed this, we discussed that. It's like to go that far and not be this kind of weirdo who's just ready to like jump into the ring with all these kids. Like I've just seen that go down in other situations and it's not cool, it's not cool. And it's like, I've always tried to make time for that stuff. There's a lot of other time to go back to the room and, screw around, just work or, sleep or whatever the hell it is. It's like I go to these things and then people are really kind of blown away by that, and it's like, whoa, like that's the least I could do. That is the least I could do. I mean, first of all, you paid me to come out there. I made money. And, thank you. I was lucrative and sold a fuck ton of merch. I remember that. But it's the same policy when there's no money involved, like when I went to Rapid City. There might have been a little bit for that one, but there wasn't a lot, and that's okay too, Yeah, man. I don't know. Well, listen, it was an honor to go. That's not why I got into graphic design. I got into graphic design to make a living. So to do all this other icing on the cake, it's just such a fucking cool thing. And I'm just so glad I got to do it with you. Because listen, I've also done some of those, gone a long way, and it wasn't all that great. You know what I mean? Like you get there and it's like it just was kind of rough. There's been those sorts of things too. Sometimes you strike out. But man, that was one of the greats. So thank you. And, all this shit blows over. I don't know. I'd love to come back there again. So hold on. Let me see here. How's this song go? How's it go? Let's see. Is it? And then how's the little?
That's it.
Oh, wait. Because here's. I can't. I'm gonna go play it right now.
That's awesome. Fun was that? I love that, man. What a great chat we just had. One of the things I love about Aaron Draplin is how personable he is. There were many moments where it was like we had switched roles, and he was more interviewing me than I was him. He presents as a joker and is always looking to make you smile, but you can tell it comes from a place full of heart. He's as much a fan of music and art as anyone ever has been, and I especially loved that he name-dropped as many Canadian bands as possible. When he brought up a comment I had made on Facebook about assault rifles early in our conversation, what he was referring to was a terrible incident that happened in Nova Scotia where an armed assailant impersonated an RCMP officer and went on a killing spree. It was a very terrible day for our country, and I, like so many others, felt the pain of the moment. And I felt anger towards the need to have these types of assault weapons even available to the general public. Our Prime Minister immediately moved to have legislation put in place to make these types of weapons illegal, a move in which I fully support. Anyway, I just felt like I should explain what we were talking about in that moment as it was important, but we kind of went there and then moved on quickly. If you'd like to learn more about Aaron Draplin, you can find his website at draplin.com. That's DRAPLIN.com. And he's very active on Instagram at Draplin. His book I mentioned in the opening is also an incredible look into his life and body of work. On his website, you'll also find a link to his online store where you can buy any number of incredible products he felt the world needed. I'm a massive fan of his trucker hats, which are the most comfortable meshback hats I've ever owned. But he also sells everything from Timex watches to Jane's brand knives, all of which he designed, to comforters, combs, guitar picks, ice scrapers, rulers, and letter openers. And of course, he also sells some actual design items like screen print posters, t-shirts, and a couple fonts he designed, which you can go and use to make your own work. If you start down that Aaron Draplin rabbit hole, you may never come out, but I promise you'll be a better person for it. As I mentioned, everything he does comes with a boatload of heart, and that's something we can all use a little more of. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode and any of our others, of course. Send them along to artdesignmusicpodcast@gmail.com. For our next episode, we're doing something very special and turning the microphone over to you. All season, we've been inviting you to send in questions and comments for our guests, and on episode 11, we're going to be opening up the mailbag to get you some answers. There's still time to be on the show if you have something you want to send in, as long as you're hearing this before episode 11 has been released. Remember that Blue Rodeo record Aaron was so pumped about there at the end, 5 Days in July? Well, I did track a copy of that down at my local record store, and I popped it in the mail to Aaron as a little thank you. But I grabbed a second copy, and I would love to give that one to one of you. All you need to do is either send along an email to artdesignmusicpodcast@gmail.com or be following our Instagram or Facebook by the time episode 11 launches. Find us there at Art Design Music Podcast. I want to send a huge thank you out to my longtime bud, Lowell Campbell, who once again played all the drum beats on this episode. I'm going to hit him up soon to come on the show, as I think it's about time you got to hear his actual voice and not just his drum chops. You will also get to hear his voice soon on his first solo album. In the meantime, you can keep up with all his action on Instagram at Lowell Campbell and check out his main band at wintersleep.com. Now, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't mention that we have some slick-ass merch over on the website. If you're in need of a t-shirt that says Art, Design, Music, and who isn't, guess what? We have that. You need a beanie to keep your head warm that will tell people you're a fan of art, design, and music? Haha, we got that too. Plus some enamel pins and stickers. Find it all on the merch page at artdesignmusic.com. I'm still blown away that we've made it through 10 episodes already. This has been super fun for me. Getting to talk to so many of my art and design heroes and capping it off with the incredible Aaron Draplin. Oh man, if you've liked what you've heard so far, then do us a massive favor and go tell a couple of friends. Send them the links. Please check out our next episode as we're closing out the season in style. We're going to give away a bunch of prizes, and I can't wait to get some of our guests back on to say hi and answer your questions. Listener Mail Call is next on Art Design Music. We'll see you there.
Just let me have the ending, Judd. Come on. Thanks, buddy.